Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gauntlet Community Open Gaming, Day 4 in September of 2022. My name is Mike, and my pronouns are he, him, and I am going to be GMing a session of Trophy Dark. The incursion we're going to be running is called Isle of Water and Blood. As of the time of this recording, Isle of Water and Blood is not yet available, and I am the author of this incursion. A little bit about the Gauntlet. So the Gauntlet is an online role-playing gaming community. We have players all over the world. We have an open calendar where we run about 100 games a month. They're all free and open for anyone to play. People who have subscribed to the Gauntlet's Patreon do have advanced access to the calendar, so it's a little easier for members to get into games, but anyone can play. We don't charge. It's all volunteer run. In addition to the online the kinds of games we tend to focus on are indie RPGs, so small story-focused and narrative-focused RPGs, story games, and the old school Renaissance. So indie games, indie RPGs, story games, and the OSR. Not going to see a lot of more traditional games, but every once in a while, someone will throw a D&D game up, which I always find interesting. In addition to an online gaming community, we also have a forum, we've got a blog, we're a podcast network, and we also have a separate publishing house where we publish a few games, including our bi-monthly newsletter and RPG magazine Codex. If you're interested in learning more about the Gauntlet, please check us out at gauntlet-rpg.com. A little bit about myself. My name is Mike. My pronouns are he, him. I've been playing tabletop RPGs for a long time. I started when I was a kid back in the early 80s. I played a lot of D&D in the 80s. I played a lot of GURPS in the 90s. I played a lot of D&D 3rd edition and then Pathfinder in the aughts. And in 2015, circumstances caused me to jump into the deep end of the story game pool. And that's mostly what I've been playing since then. In recent years, I've also really gotten interested in the OSR movement, particularly the more progressive end of the OSR movement, sort of like the new, the neo OSR stuff. I am particularly interested in the intersection of story gaming and OSR play, and that's where Trophy falls. Trophy was designed to sort of be a hybrid between OSR style play and story games. And this is one of my favorite games. I'm really looking forward to playing this. So I've yammered about myself a lot. Let's go around the table and introduce our players. Let's go clockwise as you appear on my screen. So Mona, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Mona Xu. So I've been on the Gauntlet for since June, I think. And yeah, my first game on the Gauntlet was GCOG, and it was GM'd by Mike as well. It was the Spirit of 77. Yeah. And I was also in Mike's game, I think 2 days ago, where it was planned to be Fear itself, but we had some drops and issues, so we ended up playing Quietus, but it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Both of those games are up on my YouTube channel if anyone wants to check them out. Spirit of 77 was just back in March was just a romp. Thank you, Mona. I'm really glad to have you here. Super glad to be playing with you again. Mario, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, my name is Mario. Use they them pronouns. I've been with the Gauntlet for a couple of years by now, but it's been somewhat exactly a year, maybe last GCOG, which was autumn GCOG, which was in October, I think. So yeah, pretty much a year since I played Trophy Dark last. So I'm very excited to revisit it, especially with the books arriving at some time, hopefully, desperately waiting for it. And also I just love trying new incursions. It's so much fun. I've been in a couple of playtests, and I just love that process.
Fantastic. Really glad to have you here. Eric, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So yeah, I'm Eric. I use he, him pronouns. And this is actually my first Gauntlet game, although I've been sort of a Gauntlet worker, like on the Discord and reading up on sort of all the Gauntlet folks and also the podcast. And I started sort of late 80s and 90s with pure trad stuff. I was Vampire and GURPS were sort of my D&D equivalent as far as a sort of introduction to RPGs. And only the last year or so, or maybe 2 years, have I become sort of a convert to the story game approach. So this is also my first trophy game, but it's a game I've sort of looked at and analyzed a ton just because it seems like a really interesting approach. So yeah, I'm excited for this to be my sort of Gauntlet introduction.
Well, fantastic! I'm honored to be I'm honored to be the GM of your first Gauntlet experience. So I hope we have fun. Okay, so we've done our introductions. The first thing I like to do when we start a new game is to do a little exercise called CATS. CATS stands for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. And this is sort of like the elevator pitch of the game to make sure that we're all actually here to play the same game. So Trophy Dark, the role-playing game, is a collaborative supernatural horror RPG. Need to let you know up front that the characters are not expected to survive the end of the incursion. Those who do will be forever marked by their experience and not for the better. Because a Trophy Dark incursion is not the beginning of these characters' stories, it is the end. The scenario I'm running is called Isle of Water and Blood. It is an as yet unpublished incursion that I wrote. So Trophy Dark is the default setting of Trophy Dark is sort of like a dark fantasy game, kind of influenced by like the RPG Symbaroum, if you've ever played that. I've drifted that. So this adventure is taking place in the real world in the early 20th century in New England. This one has some like direct like Call of Cthulhu elements, sort of, primarily because that's how this adventure actually started out 30 years ago. The initial seeds of this adventure were a Call of Cthulhu scenario I wrote back in the late 90s. But in this version, you're playing the bad guys. So the concept of this game is, so the concept of Isle of Water and Blood, the PCs are amateur occultists who are dealing with entities they do not understand and who will ultimately be undone by these powers. The aim of this game is to tell a tale of hubris and lust for power that leads these characters to their downfall, and to enjoy that story as we tell it. The tone of this story is, I'd like to keep it pretty serious, because this is a serious tale of bad people doing bad things. The subject matter. So this incursion does take place at sea, and on a tiny rocky island. And so some of the subject matter that some people might want to be aware of. So it does include boats, storms, drowning, occultism, isolation, possibly human sacrifice, possibly body horror, possibly murder. Any questions on CATS before we continue?
No.
Okay. So I sent out a link to the character keeper via email. Does everyone have the character keeper? If not, I can pop it in the chat window.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So if you want to click over to the safety and resources tab on the character keeper, we're going to talk a little bit about emotional safety at the game table. So we're a bunch of strangers or near strangers that are getting together to play a game on the internet, and the purpose of this little exercise is we're here to have fun. Safety tools are a means of ensuring that we focus on the fun and not on other things that could come up in the course of playing a role-playing game. When we play role-playing games, we're often opening up ourselves to a certain amount. We're like opening up ourselves emotionally. We're trusting the other players to have our best interest, to tell an interesting and fun, and in this case, like darkly horrific, but also fun story. But each of us all have different sets of life experiences. What you might find a perfectly acceptable thing to talk about or elements to introduce to the game, I might have a problem with. I might have some bad experiences with that, and just don't want to deal with that don't want to deal with that in my choice of entertainment. Safety tools allow us to put some bounds around those things, and it's not foolproof. It doesn't eliminate emotional danger, but it does put some bounds around things and put some guardrails up to hopefully prevent that from happening. Because each of us individually is more important than this game we're playing. We're going to take a layered approach to safety. We're going to be running with 3 safety tools. The first one is called the open door policy. And the open door policy is pretty simple. This one's about our personal physical comfort. Open door means we're all free to come and go from this game as we please. Anyone can call a break of the game at any time for any reason. Anyone can step out of the game for any reason and then come back when you're ready. Everyone is empowered to come to the conclusion that, this game really isn't for me. I'm not really having a great time here. I'm going to take the rest of my day back. And if someone does choose to resign, the reaction for the rest of us is going to be, cool. Sorry this game wasn't to your liking, and I hope we get a chance to play again at some point in the future. Also, speaking about breaks, this isn't since I did say anyone can call a break at any time. I am planning on calling breaks pretty much at the top of every hour. Any questions about the open door policy?
No.
Awesome. So the next thing we're going to talk about is called lines and veils. Lines and veils is a proactive safety tool that allows us to call out some particular subject matters that we either don't want to deal with at all, or we want to put some hard bounds around. If a subject is lined, that means we're not going to deal with this subject. It's not going to be there. I'm not going to include it. And other players are not going to include that as a story element. If a subject is veiled, we're still putting bounds around it. If a subject is veiled, we can acknowledge that this subject happens in the world. We may see signs that it has happened. We may hear reports of this subject happening to other people, but it is not going to happen on camera, and it is not going to happen to the player characters. There's a third category that's more recently been added to the lines and veils discussion, which is called ask first. If a subject is ask first, it means you're comfortable with dealing with this subject under some circumstances and not so much in others. So before we introduce that story element, we'll have a brief out of character discussion just to make sure that the way we're introducing this subject is going to be okay with everybody. So that's lines, veils, and ask first. I am going to pause the recording right now so we can have a discussion, so we can discuss the specifics, and we always do that off camera. And then once we have them set, we'll come back and continue. Okay, we have set our lines and veils for this game, and I've gone ahead and copied them off onto a little stick note that's floating on the top of my screen. So hopefully I and no one else will take our eyes off of that ball. The third safety tool that we are going to be playing with is called the X card. The X card is a reactive safety tool that we can invoke during the game if things aren't going the way you'd like them to go. So when you invoke the X card, you can say X card. You can type it in the chat window. If you're on camera, you can make like an X gesture with your arms. When the X card is invoked, you're telling us that we need to pause the game and talk about what's going on out of character. You can X card anything in the game that makes you uncomfortable or you otherwise find it objectionable. That can be a subject matter that you didn't think of but now want to line or veil. You can X card to pause, and so we can update our lines and veils list. If someone has introduced an element that you just feel is really off tone, or is taking the narrative into a direction that you don't really want to go, you can X card. We'll have a discussion and make the requisite changes. You can use the X card to do things like someone has introduced an NPC and we've named the NPC, and the name we chose is like the bully that used to beat you up when you were in 5th grade, and you absolutely can't stand that name. Well, you know what? This is an NPC. They don't exist. We'll just change their name and call them something else. We can also use the X card to deal with to deal with things that are happening at the table but not in the game. For example, if another player is talking over you, or is like making too many suggestions on what you should do to almost like, is like backseat role playing your character. Or if someone's like regularly mispronouncing your name or getting your pronouns wrong, please invoke the X card. We'll address that behavior. You don't need to tell us why. You don't need to justify why you want to X card anything. We just need to know what and what we need to change. When we're changing something in game, we'll also, like, while the game is paused, while we're discussing, we'll figure out what to do next. Whether we could, we could rewind and replay the scene without that element or with a different element. We can just cut the scene and pick it up from the next one. Or we could, or we could do something else that's appropriate. We'll figure that out while the game's paused. One other brief thing I like to mention about the X card is if you have, if something came up in the game that you didn't really like, but you didn't really want to make a big deal out of it, yeah, we'll just move on. And then it happens again, and you still don't like it. It is absolutely 100% okay to X card a subject that you had let slide that has previously been introduced, like once, twice, 3, 4 times. It is absolutely 100% okay to X card something that has already been introduced because you didn't, again, for whatever reason. Any questions on the X card? Okay.
No.
Awesome. This isn't exactly a safety tools discussion, but I'm going to mention it here. If something happens to me, such that either like I freeze and the meeting freezes, or the meeting suddenly quits, or I look to the side with a concerned look on my face, take my headphones off and walk off camera, and I don't come back for 10 minutes, assume something has happened to me, and after 10 minutes, we're just going to call the game. I wish I could say that never happened, but that happened on day 2. That happened on my game yesterday when I had a brief power fluctuation. I lost internet for a few minutes, and then when I came back, I just had a slew of AV issues such that I wasn't able to resolve them within half an hour, and I had to call the game. So hopefully that won't happen again, but you never know. So again, if I leave and don't come back for 10 minutes, assume the game is over. That concludes our safety talk. Do we have any questions?
No.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the game. I'm going to give a really brief rules overview. I just want to talk a little bit about the rules, just because that will impact, that may impact some of your character choices. So, who here has anyone here played Trophy Dark before?
No, I have been meaning to try it, but yeah, this is the first chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Eric, you said before we started recording, you said you had not played Trophy Dark before?
That's right.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Glad to have you. This is I'm not Trophy Dark is like Trophy Dark is in my top 5 favorite RPGs of all time. And its sister game Trophy Gold is probably my favorite RPG of all time. I love this game. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rules. I'll go a little bit more into detail since we've got some brand new players. So this is this is a horror game. It is a narrative focused game where the mechanics are such that the players regularly get a certain amount of narrative control. This game is very much a conversation, and all of the players will have, mechanically, will have chances to influence the narrative in various directions. The primary, so in this game uses 6-sided dice. It uses, you will assemble a small dice pool. Generally, most of the time you don't go much more than 3 or 4 dice. So you'll be assembling a small dice pool of dice of 2 different colors called light and dark. Generally, you'll be gathering your dice. So there's a couple of different roles for the game. The primary role for Trophy Dark is called the risk roll, and that's really the engine. That's really the engine that drives play in this game. So in the risk roll, the way that works is if your character wishes to do something risky, and failure has a consequence, tell us what you wish to accomplish. And then the GM and then ask what could possibly go wrong here. The GM and the other players will then suggest what might go wrong if your roll doesn't go so well. And basically, it's ultimately what the stakes are is ultimately the GM's call. But once you as the character is going to make the roll, knows the stakes, you have a choice. You can back down and not make the risk roll and do something else, or if you wish to press on, we can gather some dice. You take 1 light die if you have an appropriate skill, because all characters have 4 skills. They're kind of broadly defined. If one of your skills would apply to this, take a light die. You can take another light die if you accept a devil's bargain. We'll talk about that in a moment. You can then take a dark die if you're willing to risk your mind, body, or soul, or if the GM determines that what you're doing is inherently dangerous enough that you must include a dark die. You then roll the dice. Like in Forged in the Dark, we're looking at the highest value of a die. If you get a 6, that is a full success, and I will then give you narrative control to describe how you succeed. If you would rather I describe it, I will be happy to. If you get a 4 or a 5, that is a success, but there is a complication. I will describe a complication, and then you describe how you succeed. Or alternatively, I might say, okay, you describe the complication, and then I'll describe how you then I'll describe the reaction. Either way. The other thing is I could offer you the complication before you decide whether you're going to accept this outcome, because it's possible to re-roll. And if you get a 1, 2, or a 3, if your highest die is a 1, 2, or a 3, whatever you're going to try to do does not work out so well for you. Either it's a failure, or the way I like to play Trophy is, well, you get what you asked for, which wasn't, but not what you wanted. That's one of my favorite ways to twist a miss in Trophy. If you are unhappy with the results of the roll, and the highest die rolled was not a dark die, you can add a dark die to your dice pool and re-roll all of the dice and hope for a better result. The other thing that matters is the color of the dice. When you roll a dark die, you are always you're risking yourself. Your character has what's called a ruin score, which is between 1 and 5. If your ruin ever gets to 6, your character is lost, and that is the end of your character's story. They will either die, or they have succumbed to the horror. Perhaps they have become a monster themselves. So if your ruin ever gets to 6, your character's story is over, and we'll have we'll have an exit scene for that. We'll take a if a character's ruin ever gets to that point, that's a special moment. We're gonna focus on that. But when you roll your risk roll, and you don't like the result, and the highest die rolled was not on a dark die, or the dark die was not tied with a light die for the highest die, you may add another dark die and re-roll. If your dark die is higher than your if the result on your dark die is highest and it is higher than your current ruin score, your ruin goes up by 1. That's how your ruin score increases. That's a risk roll. I threw a lot of words at you. It'll make more sense once we actually get into play. 2 other roles that I want to draw attention to. There is also a ruin roll. If you encounter something terrible that would shake you or would expose you to something horrific, I may call for a ruin roll, and that's just simple. Roll a dark die. If your dark die is higher than if that die is higher than your current ruin score, your ruin goes up. I don't like the term, but that's almost a direct analog to like a sanity check in Call of Cthulhu. One other roll that is important, and I'm going to mention now, is called the reduction roll. Once your ruin hits 5, you can then start acting in the interests of the horrors to lower your ruin score. So if you choose to make a reduction roll, you can try to basically betray your companions in order to further the goals of whatever the horrors are. So that could be destroying treasure, betraying your fellow treasure hunters, destroying equipment, that sort of thing. You should try to be subtle so as not to draw attention to yourself. So each time you act in the interest of the horrors to attempt to reduce your ruin, roll a light die. If you have rolled under your current ruin score, you can decrease your ruin by 1, and your actions go unnoticed by your companions. If you have rolled equal to or higher than your current ruin score on a reduction roll, you can still choose to lower your ruin score by 1, but if you do, your actions will be noticed by your companions. You can choose not, so if you choose not to lower your ruin score, then your actions remain unnoticed. You can continue to once your ruin hits 5, you can continue to attempt to lower your ruin score through reduction rolls until you reach your starting ruin. There's also 2 other roles in the game. There's a help roll, which if you want to help one of your companions with their own risk roll, there's a mechanic for that. And finally, there's a contest roll where if multiple characters are trying to do the same thing or trying to do the first thing first, there's a special roll for that, and we'll talk about that if and when they come up in the game. Contest rolls usually only happen kind of late in the game. That's the game mechanics in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions now. I'm guessing it'll probably come up more during gameplay. But if anyone has any questions now, I'm happy to answer them.
I did have one question about the reduction roll. If once you hit that ruin 5 and you're able to start doing it, if let's say you reduce your ruin, a certain amount, and then later on it goes up again, and you want to reduce it again, can you just always have that option?
Always have that option.
Okay.
You can pretty much always continue to make reduction rolls once your ruin hits 5. You don't have to wait for it to get back up to 5 again to try to lower it more. But yeah, you can always make a reduction roll. It's just that narratively you've got to do something that is you'd have to do something else that is furthering the goals of the horrors or sabotage or betraying your companions.
Got it. Okay.
So I do like to go over the rules a little bit first, because that can inform your choices in character creation. Oh, Devil's Bargains. I did want to talk about Devil's Bargains. If you've ever played Blades in the Dark, it works more or less like a Devil's Bargain, or like a Devil's Bargain in that game. So Devil's Bargain is a way for other players to introduce new narrative elements to the game. In a Devil's Bargain, a Devil's Bargain is generally is introducing a new narrative element that's generally going to complicate things, or doesn't necessarily make things bad, but it's a new element that's going to, like, make the story. It's throwing a complication into the story. Usually, it's you generally phrase a Devil's Bargain as no matter what ... and then something happens. So when you're doing, and the Devil's Bargain does not necessarily have to directly impact the risk roll itself. Because it's a no matter what, the Devil's Bargain is something that's going to be true in the game regardless of the outcome of the risk roll. For example, this is kind of a mundane example, but if you were trying to jump over a chasm, a possible Devil's Bargain would be, no matter what, you drop your pistol down. Your pistol comes loose and falls down to the bottom of the chasm. And that's something that could be true regardless of whether or not you succeed on your roll. A Devil's Bargain in this case would not be you land hanging on the edge of the cliff, because that presumes success or failure in the Devil's Bargain. You could also do things like no matter what, when you get to the other side, your old enemy is on the other side. That could be a perfectly acceptable Devil's Bargain. The way Devil's Bargains work is the GM can offer one, the other players can offer one, and the character who's making the risk roll gets to pick which one they like, if any at all. The character making the roll can also negotiate, make a counteroffer, say, well, I like that Devil's Bargain, but I want to make it a little different. As long as all of the players agree on the Devil's Bargain, then it's cool, and the player gets to add an extra light die to their roll. And again, we'll talk about that a little more in depth when they come up in play. But this is a way that other players get to add new story elements to the game, and the risk roll and the Devil's Bargain is really kind of like, because of those, a given incursion basically never runs the same way twice. So that is the game mechanics in a nutshell. Let's hop over to the characters tab and we'll do character creation. So Trophy Dark characters are kind of paper thin. There's not a lot to them. So your character has a name. Your character has an occupation, and your occupation is going to give you 3 skills that you are skilled in. Your occupation is what you do now. You also have a background, and that is what you used to do before you started doing your current occupation. Your background is going to give you another skill. And between your occupation and your background, that'll give you a little insight as to, like, maybe give you a little insight about the history of your character. Your character also has a drive, and that is why you are doing this in the first place. So between your occupation and your background and your drive, that's really telling you who your character is, and then you're free to figure out the rest in play. The only other thing you really need to think about for your character are what are called rituals. Now, rituals are straight up magic. These are like spells that you know how to cast. You don't have to choose any rituals. You are all occultists. You are all like early 20th century occultists of some sort. So to use a ritual is a risk roll. So magic doesn't automatically work in this game. So it is a risk roll, and it must include a dark die because magic is inherently dangerous. You don't have to choose any rituals. For every ritual that you know, your starting ruin increases by 1. So that means it can never go lower than your starting ritual. So than your starting ruin. So if you start play knowing 1 ritual, your starting ruin is 2. If you know 2 rituals, your starting ruin is 3. And if you know 3 rituals at start, your starting ruin is 4. If you do take 3 rituals, you do have like these new resources you have that you can play, but that means you can only suffer ruin increase twice. I'm sorry, that means you can only suffer 1 ruin increase. You can go to ruin 5, but if your ruin increases again, you will be lost because 6 ruin is your character is out of the game. So go ahead and take a look at your occupations background drive. And we'll figure that out. I'm actually going to pause the recording here just because character creation is kind of boring. And when we come back, we will meet our characters. Okay, and we're back. We now have some characters. Let's go left, right in character keeper order. So Mario, will you introduce us to Anna?
Yeah, so I'm gonna play Anna Rasmussen. They are using she or they pronouns. Anna unfortunately got severely injured during training. She used to be like a pretty good athlete. I guess she was part of like a rowing team, if that was a thing in 1902. I don't know, probably. So yeah, she had really high hopes for herself, but then she got badly injured, and not having learned a proper occupation, she just had to make do as a medium, and it started as a joke, but then she realized there are darker powers and darker forces, and now she's like really into it, and she even found her own ways to deal with like those powers. So she got the converse ritual, that is speak with the creature that does not share your language, and strike, which means hit something with great force. So she herself is a force to reckon with, I hope.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing her how she ticks in play. Eric, would you introduce us to your character, please?
Sure. So Percival Withers was or he used to be wealthy. His affairs are in disarray in large part because of his wild theories and thesis in university. He became obsessed with the notion of these hidden beings. He called them secret chiefs, sometimes borrowing too liberally from the Golden Dawn. And he was effectively laughed out of academia. He became addicted to opium, although he won't admit that. He just dabbles. He's in a sort of a little bit of sort of remission with that. He's not completely hooked, but he won't pass up sort of any opportunity for that or anything else. And he's learned how to let spirits inhabit him. He's learned how to sort of reach out, and this is again through his sort of experimentation with different substances and such. He's learned how to reach out and inhabit other people. The thing he's missing is learning how to call something that is properly powerful enough to inhabit him and to show his old chums at university just how wrong they are about everything.
I love it.
So he's Percy to his friends, although he sort of thinks everyone's his friend.
Okay, I love it. I love it. And Mona, would you introduce us to your character, please?
Yeah, so I'm Florence Maxwell, she, her. So I was working on a novel, like a really long, big, like epic magnum opus level novel, where I did a lot of actual research into like occult shit and like astrology and stuff like that. But unfortunately, just before like it got picked up by a publisher, someone else published a novel with a very similar premise, just none of my research. So the publisher decided, if we know you have been working on this for years, but if we publish this now, people will just think you have replan of its derivative, so we can do that. So I was very pissed, but I studied enough like astrology and like fortune telling. I actually became pretty good at it. So also, like, one of my research subject is Aleister Crowley, and I think he's kind of a jerk. So I decided that I will become, if I can publish a novel, I will become an occultist bigger than Aleister Crowley.
I love it. Fantastic. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing more of these characters. Okay. Got your note, Mario. Got it. Hope everything's okay. Okay. So let us begin. Many trophy incursions start with a poem. This one is no different, although this one is I'm not much of a poet myself, and since this one takes place in the real world, I'm starting with a poem which was written about the Isles of Shoals, which is where this incursion is going to place. So this is a poem written by James Russell Lowell that was published in 1879. A heap of bare and splintery crags tumbled about by lightning and frost, with rifts and chasms and stormed bleached jags that wait and growl for a ship to be lost. Not islands, but rather the skeleton of a wrecked and vengeance-smitten one. Isle of water and blood. If this were a movie, like after, so that would be like, that would be the intro, and the introduction would be looking down at a letter. I'm just going to read the letter. That's sort of like I imagine that it's a handwritten letter, and somebody is reading it by oil lamp. Portsmouth, New Hampshire, October 22nd, 1902. Dear Magister Reynolds, we have done it. Through Madame Rasmussen's divinations via tarot and talking board, the Hermetic Order of the Crescent Moon has contacted a spirit of great power. The entity says its name is Kulshedra, and that it was once a high priestess on the lost continent of Lemuria 6,000 years ago. We have entreated this spirit to share its wisdom with us, and it has agreed. In exchange, it has provided us with a ritual of summoning that can call its avatar into the world, through which it promises to teach us ancient occult wisdom. But the timetable for this ritual is short. It must be performed under the star Algol as it rises on the eve of Shamain under a new moon, which your almanac will tell is in just 9 days. It will be 27 years before that astronomical event recurs. Furthermore, this ritual can only be performed on solid ground where the sea is no farther than a pistol shot in any direction. It is fortuitous that our cabal is where it is. The Isles of Shoals are a mere hour's sail east of Portsmouth. I've taken the liberty to rent out the seasonal hotel, the Mid-Ocean House on Smutty Nose Island on that very night. I sincerely hope that you can join us for this momentous event. Not even Aleister Crowley himself could imagine the hermetic secrets that Kulshedra shall share upon us. I remain, dear sir, your most obedient servant, Dr. Alistair Tillinghast, Magus Esquire. So the background of this adventure. It is October of 1902. You are members of a cabal of occultists who are based in southern New Hampshire, northern Massachusetts. Your headquarters is in the city of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. You call yourselves the Hermetic Order of the Crescent Moon, and your cabal seeks greater and greater magical power. Your leader is a discredited academic named Arthur Tillinghast. And as I have alluded in the letter, you have discovered a magical ritual to contact an otherworldly entity called Kulshedra. You believe that Kulshedra is an enlightened spirit from a lost age that will teach you arcane secrets.
Hey,
The ritual
since some of these names are like kind of unusual, can we add a tab in the
Yes.
character keyboard to keep track of them?
Oh yes, I don't have a notes tab. Why don't we do that? Add sheet, rename, notes.
Also, we could also use the chat here.
Yep, that also works.
Or Mona, you want specifically a tab in the okay, there's already a tab, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just gonna merge a cell and we can just use that for notes. And let me do it. Oops. And do a format wrap text. And okay. So the ritual needs to be conducted on, and basically the ritual must be conducted on an island, on a small island, where the sea is no more than a few hundred, where the ocean is no more than 1,000 feet in any direction. And it has to be done on the night of a new moon while the star Algol is rising on the night of Halloween. And sure enough, December 31st, 1902 is such a night. And the next time this will happen is in 27 years. So Tillinghast has rented a seasonal hotel, which is located on one of the Isles of Shoals, which is just a few miles off the, which is just a few miles off the coast of New Hampshire. In point of fact, these islands are real. They really do exist. I've seen them for sure, but although I've never been on one. Tillinghast has rented the Mid-Ocean House, which is a seasonal hotel, which is on Smutty Nose Island. And again, this was a real place. It burned, the real Mid-Ocean House like burned down circa 1910, and that island is mostly uninhabited now. And these are very tiny islands. They are little more than rocks jutting up out of the ocean. Yes, so the Isles are located just 6 miles from shore, so they are visible from shore, although they're just barely on the horizon. The travel by ship is about 12 miles from Portsmouth Harbor. This ritual culminates at 2 a.m. and Tillinghast has chartered a steamboat to take you across. The boat was to arrive at 2 o'clock, but it is now nearly sunset. You are the only occultists from your group that have been assembled here and are waiting for the boat. I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of a Trophy Dark scenario. So in Trophy Dark, a scenario is called an incursion because you are going places where you are not supposed to be. A Trophy Dark incursion is structured into a series of 5 rings, and as you progress through the rings, the intensity of the adventure continues to increase. And the types of obstacles that you face in a given ring vary, but the obstacles get more and more difficult as you progress through the rings, but at the same time, the potential for what it is you're after also get closer and closer and closer. We are at ring 1. So you are standing at the 3 of you have gathered at a dock in Portsmouth Harbor. The day was beautiful. It was just a glorious autumn day, sunny, just a few wisps of clouds. It's late in autumn. Most of the leaves have fallen off the trees. There's definitely a bit of a chill in the air now. It is October 31st. It is Halloween. Tillingast, for whatever reason, didn't join you here. You think he's it was a little vague. You thought he was going to meet you here, and then all of you were going to go back over together. He had arranged for a steamboat to pick you up here, but the boat was supposed to be here 3 hours ago. You've been at this dock since 2. It is now 5, and the sun is starting to set. And you know that it is difficult under best of circumstances to dock on the Isles of Shoals, and because they are islands among shoals, the waters there are extremely treacherous. There are like nasty, nasty rocks that are just below the surface that have sent many a boat to the bottom. And attempting to approach the Isles of Shoals in the dark is extremely dangerous. The shoals are all marked with buoys, but you can't really see buoys too well at night. And I'm going to say you've probably checked with the charter house. There is a clerk in there who's not sure why the boat isn't here yet. And so you are here. There is an open question here, which I'm going to toss to the players, which is, why aren't any other members of your order here? Why is it only just the 3 of you? I will ask.
How big is the order anyway?
That is a good question.
Would have been my answer. There is no one else.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a 4-person order, it makes sense. I mean, more people here.
I had always go on.
We're probably a chapter of a much bigger order, but like nobody takes us serious, and we just do our like.
Or like we have like hundreds of members on paper, but most of them just receive our newsletter in the mail, and they don't come to our meeting, and they don't.
Yeah, they all chicken out, just like Arthur did on us right now, right? Oh man.
Arthur is the leader. He is the Arthur is the so Arthur Tillingast. He is the leader of this order, and he was supposed to be here, but he is not.
I never trusted that guy. I knew he did it all just for like fame and publicity. He was never really into it. Damn coward.
I think he doesn't like the sea air. It's a dark night. It's windy. It has to be a horribly windy isle. So we're all sort of academic bunches, and he just wasn't ready for it.
I knew he doesn't have it in him.
I think
Percy Percy
have made you the
suspects
leader.
sabotage, but
Yeah.
he wouldn't dare mention it yet.
Percy, since the moment you stepped in, I knew you should have taken the leadership. Arthur was just no good. He only had the money, right?
It's interesting that you'd say that. I've journaled about that very thing.
I mean, you got the potential, and just the fact that you know that makes you a good leader, doesn't it? Don't you agree, Florence?
Yeah, whatever. I think I have a flask and I'm just like drinking from it every now and then. I mean, let's just go. We don't want to sell this thing in the dark.
I say,
I'm here. We are here to commune with spirits, not to become them.
I'd take a nip of that hooch, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I say, well, is there anyone we can pay to do this job correctly? Any other? I suppose there's no other boats or sailor types.
Well, funny you should ask, because like maybe 45 minutes ago, on the same pier that you're standing on, waiting for this chartered steamboat, a lobster schooner pulled up. It's a single-masted sailing ship, and there were a pair of fishermen are aboard this lobster schooner, and they've been unloading their lobster traps, and they're pretty much done. They're pretty much done with unloading. Now the sky is the sun hasn't set yet, but it is going to set in probably going to set in maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And this time of year, you're probably going to have another like a good like half hour to 40 minutes of decent twilight. But if you're going to go, you need to go now.
Yeah, do so.
But yeah, there's
I think if
and it looks like these lobstermen looks like they've pretty much finished unloading their lobster traps. And looks like they're getting ready to leave for the night. It's there's two of them. There's an older man who's kind of grizzled. Looks like he's probably in his 60s. And there's also helping him is apparently some kind of apprentice fisherman he's barely, I mean, he's still a boy. He doesn't look like he's old enough to shave yet. This kid can't be more than like 15, maybe 16 if he's a late bloomer.
I think if we're going to put it to them, it should be one of you ladies. How could they resist?
Yeah, I mean,
I think if we pay them enough, it doesn't matter either way.
I'd say so.
Does anybody of us actually have the money on hand?
I'm just going to interject a little bit about rules elements for Trophy Dark. This is not a game of inventory tracking. If it makes sense for you to have it, you have it. I'm guessing you probably also have like some suitcases and cases of like ritual elements, ritual objects, robes, whatever, like robes, masks, daggers, whatever stuff you think you're going to need for the ritual, you have.
Yeah, it's just like I mentioned, I'm rather poor, maybe not for like island standards. I probably make way more than they do, but I'm basically sponsored by Arthur, right? So
I'm sure I have a goblet I could part with.
okay, I walk up and do the secretary stuff, right? So I mean, I'm dressed like a city lady anyway, so I just walk up and say, excuse me, mister. Unfortunately, our ship never arrived, and I see that you and your age have to do the labor of a young man. And perhaps we could strike a deal. We will give you a week's worth of salary for taking us over, like the three of us, to the island.
Where are you looking to go? Where are you looking to go this night, madam? Says the captain.
We need to go to the mid-ocean house on Smutty Nose Island.
Wait, you want to go to the Isles of Shoals tonight? I mean,
Indeed.
the waters there are completely treacherous. That's a very bad idea, madam.
That's why we came to you, in fact, because obviously you have ages of wisdom and knowledge about these waters, and we would not feel safe with anyone else.
He looks at the sky. I mean, he looks to the he looks to the west. The sun is setting over the land. This is the East Coast after all. He said, "There's not very much light left. If we're gonna go, we need to go now." But and he looks at his he looks at his younger companion and says, "I don't know. This seems like a bad idea to me. Tell you what, we'll sail you off in the morning if you want to meet us back here."
I say, so I say, could we have a word? I want to sort of take him aside a little bit.
Okay, what's that look like? Are you? I'm going to say, he's been like hopping on and off. Are you on the pier, or are you like just hopping aboard his ship?
I was on the pier, so I'm going to hop on.
Okay.
And I don't actually care if Anna hears or not, but I'll just, out of sort of common decency, I kind of turn to the side a bit and I say, "My good man, these ladies are determined. If you leave with your boy, the next ship arrives, or if anyone we find in the local pub, if anyone agrees, and someone will, they will take them, and they're like to drown. Would you like to hear in the morning that some lesser man, some lesser vessel took these women and they were lost forever?" There's no no here, is what I'm saying. It's just about who's willing, well, to protect them, and then myself, of course, but they're the ones that really wish to get across there.
So it sounds like you're trying to appeal to this guy's better nature, that you're like, well, if you don't do it, they're going to find someone else and they're going to get everyone killed.
Yeah, I'm trying to guilt trip him.
Okay.
In advance.
Got it. I think this might call for the first roll of the game. So let's so I think this is going to be a risk roll. So first of all, let us figure out the stakes for this roll. So it sounds like it's pretty clear that what you want is to convince them to take you across, even though this is a bad time of day to make this passage. What could possibly go wrong here? Mario, Mona, do you have any ideas as to what could go wrong here? I have a couple of ideas, but I'm curious what yours are.
I think what could go wrong here is that those two are actually part of like a pirate's crew, and they just try to capture us since we look like rich people, to just take us hostage and bribe somebody for our release, right?
That's dark. I like it. What I was just going to offer is the worst thing that could happen would be, they just flatly refuse and they just leave. They aren't taking you. They aren't taking you across at night. That's near suicide. Any suggestions from Mona? What could go wrong here? Ultimately, the decision is mine, but I'm just curious if people have better ideas than I have.
Yeah, no, I don't have any ideas right now.
Okay. So those are the risks that cross your mind, Percy. They could just say they could just say flat out refuse and take their lobsters and leave. Or I guess it's possible that they could be some kind of, it could be possible that they decide to take y'all captive. Once you're aboard their ship, you're going to kind of be at their mercy. Do you wish to press on?
I'm willing to risk it.
Okay, willing to press on. Would you be willing to consider a devil's bargain?
Certainly, I'm always ready.
Okay. So this would be an element. No matter what. Let's see.
I got one.
No matter what, regardless of what happens here, no matter what, a storm's going to kick up.
That seems very appropriate.
Yes.
Anyone else have a devil's bargain they would like to pose? And anyone can pose a devil's bargain, and if you like one, you can pick the one you like, or if you don't like any of them, you don't have to take them. But I'm posing, no matter what happens, the storm is going to kick up.
Okay. No matter what, your colleague that discredited you shows up basically with the intent to supervise you, or just check on you, find more more material.
That's brutal. That's Percy's worst nightmare.
Yeah, I like that one.
So it sounds like there are two devil's bargains on the table here. One is storm could kick up, and two is that person who discredited you shows. And if you choose that one, we'll figure out who that is and why they're here. But do either of those appeal?
Yeah, I think my nemesis is perfect. Well, it fits in with Percy's notion that they're sort of secret masters of every occult or organization as well. So if this guy or whoever it was discredited me and is also part of the Crescent Moon, that would be gutting.
Oh,
Nice.
You don't even know the name. Who specifically was it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Just changing the notes page a little bit to make it a little easier to use. Sorry, just monkeying with a spreadsheet to make the notes a little easier to use, because the way I'd set it up was not. Yeah.
So we need a name for this person.
Yep. Just what I was going to suggest.
We can take. I like the name you had. What was it? Winton Ashford. You had as one of the selections. I think that sounds like the right kind of chap who would do that to me.
Dr. Winton Ashford.
Oh, of course.
Dr. Winton Ashford, you said?
Yes, Dr. Winton Ashford. He's probably an esquire too.
Dr. Winton Ashford, and what is he an academic of?
He obviously has multiple PhDs.
Yes.
Don't you ever forget that?
He would have been a classicist like me, but also clearly he's a lawyer. He's a far more successful man, probably a businessman. He must have a patent or two.
Got it. And he was like and is he like, oh, and of course he's a tenured professor at Harvard.
Oh, of course he is now. And at the time, we were on a similar track, but not anymore.
So Ashford, so as you're there, we'll introduce him in a moment. You are okay. I don't think we're going to. I think this is going to be a first. I think this is going to be it's going to be our first roll of the game. So if you want to click over to our dice roller, this is going to be click the risk tab. So let's talk about dice. We are taking. You are accepting a devil's bargain, so you can take one light die for that.
Okay.
Do you have any skills that would help you in negotiation or otherwise trying to convince these two?
I don't think so. I have no, these guys aren't literature fans, I imagine. So
okay. So it looks like we're rolling with one light die. At the moment, this is not inherent. I mean, what you're doing here is not inherently risky. I'm not requiring you to add a dark die. You can choose to up the stakes if you want to, but I would suggest if you want to, let's go ahead and roll because we don't have a dark die in it yet. If you don't like the result, you can always add a dark die and re-roll all your dice.
Okay.
So let's do our first risk roll. It's going to be one light die.
Okay.
Let's see what we get. Ha! Perfect.
I knew they were up to it.
You have convinced them to take you aboard and take you on a rather risky sail. When I say sail, I mean sail.
I have a question.
Yes.
Since Percy rolled a 6, it doesn't really matter. But since he took a devil's bargain, doesn't that mean he has 2 light die?
No, you do not get. Many games you get a die for just doing it. You do not get a light die for just doing it in trophy.
I mean the devil's bargain.
That was the light die. Was for the devil's bargain.
So just 1.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I don't have a background or skill.
Yeah, you didn't have a skill.
Anything else?
You get 1 light die for having a skill that applies. You get a second light die for accepting a devil's bargain. Those are the only 2 light die you can get for a risk roll. Trophy was originally started as a hack of the game Cthulhu Dark, and Cthulhu Dark does give you a light die for just give you a die for just trying. Not so here. That is a difference between this one and Cthulhu Dark. So if you have no skill and you don't want to do a devil's bargain, the only thing you can roll is a dark die.
Okay.
So, but first you rolled a 6, so that is a full success. So, they, so the two fishermen like confer among themselves, and they both look concernedly at the sun, and then they both look concernedly east toward the Isles, which you can just barely see on the horizon. In fact, you can see them a little better at sunset than you can at sunrise because they're not silhouetted. And they and the older captain says, "All right. This is a terrible idea, but if you're going to get yourselves killed otherwise, so you ought to get aboard now."
I say you have saved us, that good man.
Anna, as you climb aboard, how do these fishermen, either one or both, how do they express their displeasure about doing you this favor?
I mean, it's a whole bunch of work to make the ship fit again, right? So they just took care that it would be like stormproof in the harbor for the night and everything. So it takes a while until they're ready. And of course, the older guy starts singing a bit of like an anti-city people type of shanty, right? It's
Singing a sea
could have
shanty
been
that's
better way.
I love it. He's singing a sea shanty that's making fun of landlubbers and how they're really all, if when a landlubber goes to sea, the best place they could be is at the bottom of the sea.
Yeah. And obviously we don't know nothing about nothing really. Only dancing to music. That's pretty much all we do all day. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. As you are climbing aboard, before I go on, I have a question. I have a question for Percy. Did you complete your PhD, or are you like all but dissertation? I mean, can you put the letters PhD after your name?
I imagined yes, but that his because he was a classicist and because he's sort of pure academia, that's just the beginning. His entire life was supposed to be in letters, and so that's the real horror.
Got it. Oh yeah. I'm not an academic myself, but I work at a college in real life, and yes, I totally get that. Getting your PhD, that's the start of your troubles.
Exactly.
So as you are climbing aboard, you hear the sound of like hard-soled shoes like running on the pier. And you hear a voice called out, hold on there, hold on there. One more passenger. And a man he's probably in his like late 30s, very well dressed. A man comes running down the pier, and Percy, you totally recognize. I mean, what the heck is Ashford doing here? This is your old nemesis.
I said, no. Can we set off? Can we go?
And so the younger sailor is like untying the ropes, and the older one is like, we have to set sail now, or we are never going to make it.
I say, push off, man.
Who the hell is this guy?
And just that, this guy steps aboard, and he's got a he's got a small carpet bag in his hand. Looks like it's a little more than an overnight bag. But like, you're with the order. He says, you're with the order. I didn't my train was late. I didn't think I was going to make it on time. And oh my goodness, he looks at Percy. Dr. Withers, I did not know you were attached with the order.
Yes, old boy, I'm a practicus, in fact.
A practicus, you say? Fantastic. Well, I didn't know. I'm very curious as to see what might be happening upon this. What might be happening here?
Hey, Percy, this guy a friend of yours?
He's a colleague. I suppose he's just learned of the order and is just a dabbling, perhaps.
I happen to be president. I happen to be president of the Cambridge chapter.
Of course.
We have a Cambridge chapter?
I'm president of the Cambridge chapter of the Order of the Crescent Moon. And he extends his hand and introduces himself as Dr. Winton Ashford, Magus Extraordinary. Dr. Winton Ashford, Magus.
Say, old boy, if you'd like to come, we must go.
Indeed. I was at the Indeed, I was at the. I'm blanking on the name of it. There's a famous bar in Harvard that the faculty generally hang out in. I'm blanking on the name of it. Anyway,
I say, listen, I know your knees can be a trick. I'll help you in.
I love it. He says, "Oh yes, well, I was at the Seal and Serpent. I was at the Seal and Serpent. I was having a brandy with Tillinghast, and he told me about your little adventure here, and I thought I'd need to see it for myself."
Yes, we can talk on the way. You've delayed us long enough.
And at this, the captain says, "We have to set sail now, or we're never going to get there."
This is what I'm saying
let's
to
go.
him.
And so the younger sailor unties, and they set the sail, and the wind catches it, and you sail off toward the east. As you're sailing off, you overhear the Mona. As they're sailing off, you overhear a snippet of conversation between the two sailors, the kid and this grizzled old captain. And the kid is asking the captain about how are we going to avoid the fate of, and go ahead and fill in what is the terrible tale that these sailors are talking about of people who were of the folly of trying to sail to the Isles of Shoals at night. What is the terrible tale of other fools who tried to dock at the Isles of Shoals at night?
I think there was another ship. I'm just going to give her a name. I think her name was Queen Mary II. And I think the story is that one day some rich people, some rich people, at least to the townspeople, they look like rich people, try to sail out during the night. And the next day, they found the ship on the ocean, but there was no one on board. Just no one, nothing.
And at that to that the captain says, "Oh, I heard that. I heard that. Yeah, I heard that tale before. And the only thing they found on the deck was the severed tentacle of a giant squid."
Yeah, I think Florence is very interested in that, and she's like finally putting down her flask and took out a notebook and like, "Oh, truly, tell me more."
So as you're sailing out, and again, the sky is beautiful. It's like, yeah, the sun is setting in the west over land, but sailing to the east, the sky is turning this in the west, the sky is turning this like beautiful shades of like orange and yellow. And looking east, the way you're going, the sky is starting to turn this like midnight blue, and stars are just starting to come out. As you are all sailing off into the harbor, each of you are thinking introspectively to yourself. I'm going to ask each of you in turn, what is your secret fear about conducting this ritual? Anna, what is your secret fear about this ritual?
I mean, I talked to Kulshedra during the seance before, and I've been witness to her powers. And it's only a 3 fools, so I'm not sure if we're gonna be able to contain her And therefore, I'm actually glad that Dr. Winton Ashford joined us. If he's actually a magus and capable of what he's doing, he might be like necessary to actually pull it off, right?
Nice. Percy, what is your secret fear about this?
Well, my fear coming into it was that Kalshedra, would refuse my proposal, would not allow me to channel her, and sort of bring about this sort of intellectual ruin or whatever she wishes as well, that I'm hoping to sort of visit upon all my old enemies. Now that Winton is here, my fear would be probably that he's going to do it instead, that he would just steal my idea, or otherwise, sort of gain control of anything she has to offer. But yes, him channeling her would be probably Percy's worst nightmare.
So your fear, I'm writing down. Anna, I have your fear as with just the three of you, will you be able to contain the power of Kalshedra? Percy, your fear is that Kalshedra will bestow her power on Ashford instead of you. Mona, what is Florence's fear?
Yeah, my fear is that it's not going to work, because I'm very much a show me type of person. And while I know magic is real, I have done scrying and like astrology and stuff like that. I have never actually contacted any of these spirits or ascended masters or what have you myself. So my biggest fear is that it's all like just a big load of nothing. And when we get there, like maybe we will like get hurt and lost property on the way. And when we got there, we realized there's nothing there. There's no power, no magic, and it's just a humiliating failure again.
Got it. I love it. This whole thing is going to come to naught, and we're going to look like fools. I love it. So as you sail out past the harbor, as you sail out of the harbor and into the open ocean, it's evening, so there's now a land breeze. So the wind is coming off of the land over to the like into the sea, and it's and the tide is going out. It is a new moon, and the wind and the air like blows over the coast on the low tide, and you just smell the you just get a very strong whiff of the acrid sulfur iodine smell of decaying seaweed as you sail to the east toward the islands. And that is the end of ring 1. I'm looking at the time. Why don't we take a quick 5-minute break here? And we'll come back and we'll do ring 2. See you in 5.
Yeah.
We're now in ring 2. So as you sail, you had asked the fishermen how long will it take to sail there, and they tell you it's probably about an hour and a half. If we're lucky, we'll get there with just barely enough light to see. They describe, the captain describes that Smutty Nose in particular doesn't have a beach. The entire island is like cliffs that are about 20 to 25 feet above the water. With just some rocks below, but it's like it's just a cliff that goes down into the water with rocks. There isn't a cove on the there isn't so much a cove. I wouldn't quite call it it's not a harbor, it's not a cove. There's a break in the rocks that's maybe 25 feet wide, just barely big enough to row a dinghy in there. The people that run the Mid-Ocean House have built a small wooden pier that comes out. So that's what we're gonna have to dock on. But there's no natural harbor. There's no beach that you could put a boat in. And getting to that pier is treacherous. The water is it's it's pretty deep, but there are rocks that there are so many rocks and shoals that just come right up, just barely under the waves. They're hard to notice. Fortunately, they're all marked, but they're hard. But those buoys are damn near impossible to see once it gets dark. And just to make it clear, this is a sailboat. This boat does not have a motor. This is a 19th century lobster schooner. It's a single masted sailing ship. So it does not have an engine, does not have a motor. It only operates under wind power, or if and it's too big to row. Also, it does not seem to have. It also does not have a lifeboat. It does not have any. It's not towing a dinghy. Again, not unusual for the day. So it's about an hour into the land. So they tell you it's going to be about an hour and a half, and by the time they get there, it's just they are hoping they will have just barely enough light to see to get you onto the dock, and then they'll cast off and get back out to deeper water. Sailing back into Portsmouth won't be a problem because of the lighthouse and the harbor lights. But there's no lights out here. Like the Isles of Shoals, these islands, they don't have electricity.
Not even from our hotel.
No, your hotel doesn't have electricity. I mean, it's 1902.
But yeah, like oil lamps or something that. Okay, wow.
Oh, they'll have. They'll have oil. They'll have kerosene lamps. They'll certainly have kerosene lamps there, but they're not going to have electric lights. And yeah, they tell you that. In fact, you weren't expecting this place to have electricity. In fact, Portsmouth itself was only wired for electricity, like maybe 20 years ago. So it's about an hour into the trip when the wind picks up unexpectedly, and the seas are starting to get very rough. Again, unexpectedly so. Both of the fishermen look very surprised as the seas get really rough. I mean, they had been pretty calm when you set out. Maybe you had some 2 or 3 foot swells, but you're getting like 6-7 foot swells out here. So the boat is like going up and down. If this were a different game, I would have you make. If this were D&D, I'd have you make Constitution checks to avoid seasickness. But this is not that game.
I'm gonna ask Florence for some more of her hooch, if she has any left.
But you're on deck. So
I say, don't overdo it. I'm almost out.
Okay, so I'll just take a little sip, and then another little one, and then give it back.
And the wind is kicking up. The captain and the captain and his very young apprentice, they are like frantically, like regularly, like making adjustments to the sails, or like swinging the jib around. They bark orders at you to stay back and stay away from the swinging jib, because if it hits you, you're going to get knocked in the water, and they will never find you.
It is. It's probably a little bit unexpected, but Anna gets somewhat seasick. We're not usually rowing in such waters, and I just tried to overplay it, and I start like moaning a little bit, and I say, oh yeah, we're getting close. I can feel her presence. Probably the wind. It's all her doing. She's a very, very powerful entity. We will be known throughout the entire world for summoning her.
And at this point, with the waves and the wind, the captain looks at you and says, the captain looks at you with like a look of like legit fear in his eyes and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, there is no way we are getting to that island. We're turning around." And he goes to the tiller and he starts to turn the boat back toward Portsmouth. I'm going to ask, before I ask you what to do, I'm going to ask each of you, Percy, how can you tell that this captain is legitimately terrified?
I think because he overheard Anna in her sort of ecstatic state there, speaking about some spirit, and that I think has as soon as that happened, his eyes went wide, and he realized just how cursed this entire thing is.
Oh, you're dealing with dark spirit. Oh, you're dealing with dark spirits. He wants nothing to do with this. He's going back. They're turning. They are turning the boat around. Amona, I will ask, how can Florence tell that likewise, how can Florence tell that the younger fisherman is at least as, if not more, terrified than the captain of these waters and your situation?
He should have worn his brown pants. Let's just leave it at that.
Fair enough. So as these fishermen are turning the boat around, Ashford walks up to the captain and says, I say, sir, I do say, sir, why you are turning this, it appears that you are turning this boat around. We need to go that way. And the, let's just say the response from the sailor is as salty as you would expect a response from a salty sailor.
I have an idea.
So they are turning this boat around. What do you do?
So I say, ladies, pray with me this works. So I'm gonna try to entreat. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna try to entreat Amathion, the Egyptian goddess of the ocean, to help me take control of this man's mind, the sailor. So I'm gonna try to cast a ritual.
Ooh, which ritual are you going to cast?
Inhabit.
Inhabit. Ooh, our first ritual of the game. Excellent. Let's talk some. I'm going to ask you what. So I'm going to ask you what does casting this? What does performing this ritual look like? Again, you're on the you're on the open deck of a fishing boat. The wind is terrible, and the boat is being tossed by 10-foot swells.
So I imagined that Percy was already sort of laying basically prone because of his fear of what was happening outside, or rather the wind and the water and such. And so he's going to sit up a bit and try to look through he's got one of his many journals. So he's looking through his journal at his sort of the various drawings, the sort of arcane drawings that he's done that helps him do this. And he's trying his best to sort of keep the journal from flying off, into the water. And so it's basically just him muttering over that, and hoping that the weather is bad enough that these men don't hear him.
Okay, so you're casting this ritual. You're basically reading the word. You're reading the words from from this journal that has the incantation written down. I love it. Okay, let's so what is so that so your goal here is to
Oh.
what is your intent here?
Yes. So my goal is to take control of the sailor's mind, the father's mind. And I don't think I have any ability, I don't know anything about the water necessarily. So the very least is just going to be to try to get to be able to sort of command the boy and sort of anyone that, can help. I'm not sure. Of course, Ashford probably has some experience on the on a boat. So basically it's just to try to sort of take a command of him until we get
Okay,
close enough that there's no
got it.
turning back.
Got it. So you're gonna try to take over this guy's body, and through him you're gonna give some orders and hopefully get the younger sailor to actually do the sailing and
Correct.
and to turn it about and keep you on course. Okay.
And I'll cast his mind into the darkness, and in the meanwhile, I don't care what happens to him.
Dark. Love it. Okay, awesome. Let's talk dice. Looking at your skills here, you are skilled in rituals, so you will get a light die for having a skill. You must take a dark die because you are casting a ritual. So we're currently at light 1, dark 1. Are you willing to accept a devil's bargain?
I'm always willing.
You said you were invoking an Egyptian spirit of the sea. I'm going to say that no matter what, you will take the condition. And what? I'm sorry. You said you named this entity. What was the entity you named?
Amathion.
Amathion. I'm going to give you the no matter what, you will take the condition marked by Amathion.
How does condition work in this game?
I was just going to say, I think I neglected to talk about conditions. So conditions in this game are they're kind of like narrative elements that are on your character. They don't have a mechanical effect at all, but they do have narrative effect. So if you have a condition that could conceivably, depending on the nature of the condition, that may limit your narrative options, or may impose narrative restrictions, or could grant the GM ability to like throw new narrative elements. So in this case, if you are like marked by a spirit, how that would probably play out is, you may start hearing the voice of this entity in your mind that may be urging you to do something. And again, they have narrative effects. It doesn't necessarily have direct mechanical effects. Like mundane conditions aren't really a thing in dark. That's more of a gold thing. But an example I like to use is if you have the condition like broken ankle, that doesn't have any direct mechanical effects, but it would limit your narrative options. Like if you've got a broken ankle, you can't run. If normally you could just do something, like if you needed to get quickly across, to get quickly across the field, normally you just do it. Whereas if you have a broken ankle and you're trying to get quickly across the field, I'd probably call for a risk roll. Depending on the condition, you may just not narratively, it just might not make sense for you to be able to do something. Or alternatively, conditions don't have to be negative. A condition can be something that may give you an edge under certain circumstances. Like if you are marked by the sea god, maybe that might give you an advantage when if you like get knocked into the ocean and need to swim for it. Maybe if you are like marked by the sea god, maybe that means, if it wishes you good things, maybe that means they'll help you swim. Maybe if it means bad things, they're going to drag you under. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But that's conditions. They are narrative elements that may constrain. They're things that attach to your character that may constrain or throw other obstacles to your narratively to what would make sense in the fiction. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to say I'm going to offer no matter what you take the condition. God, and I started to write it down and I didn't. What was the name of that entity again?
A Matheon. There aren't a lot of Egyptian goddesses of the ocean or the sea, but she's a minor one.
Got it. So my offer is you will take the, no matter what, you will take the condition marked by a Matheon. Anyone else have any? Oh, and the other thing is when you're doing potential devil's bargains when involved with invoking rituals, this is the time you can get supernatural and get weird. Anyone else have any suggestions on what a narrative complication for casting this ritual might be?
Yeah. I've got an idea for the devil's bargain, and that would be you realize that our dear Dr. Winton Ashford is indeed an old soul, and since you're evoking an old Egyptian ritual, he is either possessed or has, I don't know, some ancestry that shined through in a very weird way. And since he's spying on you, you will be aware of that he's not only a mere human professor.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
And Mona, do you have any would you like to suggest devil's bargain?
Yeah, no, I like Mario's suggestion.
So, Eric, you've got 2 devil's bargains on the table for Percy. And honestly, I just thought of another one. So I'm going to throw this one on the table as a possibility too. And this one might be a complication. Oh, and we also forgot to ask what could possibly go. Yeah. So these are devil's bargains. I forgot to ask what could possibly. I did forget to ask what could possibly go wrong with this ritual. So we've got 2 devil's bargains on the table. We'll get to that, but I forgot to set the stakes. What could go wrong here? I've got one, and that is. Yeah, you take possession. Like one thing that could go wrong is, yeah, you take possession of this captain, but the captain's spirit ends up in your body.
Yeah, that's
Mind swap.
classic Freaky Friday.
So that's possible. That's a possible thing that could go wrong here. Does anyone else have any ideas?
Sure. I think a god might be a bit too much for this ship to carry. Maybe the god does not come in just like a mere, I don't know, 6 feet tall size. Maybe they come in, I don't know, double or triple the size, and the boat can't carry that, can't handle all the load.
Invoking a Matheon means a Matheon manifests. Ooh. Okay, that's a pretty cool consequence. Money, any ideas what might go wrong here?
Yeah, I have an idea. It's similar to the one Mario proposed for Dr. Ashford. I'm thinking you will realize that the sailor is more than a sailor. Like he has some sort of protection as well.
Okay, so some complications. Some complications are so things that could go wrong with this ritual is one, instead of you taking possession of this, instead of you possessing the sailor, you mind swap with the sailor. So you're walking around in his body, he's walking around in your body. Possible complication would be, since you're invoking Amathion, the Egyptian goddess of the sea, she actually manifests. Or another complication is that, oh, the sailor is more than he seemed and may have something else going on. As for the devil's bargains that were on the table, so those are complications.
Mm-hmm.
Devil's bargains on the tables were, I'm trying to remember what they were because I interrupted myself. There was
Marked by Matheon.
Marked by a Matheon. And what was
Ashford is
Yeah, it's a
Ashford is
supernatural.
Ashford is no matter what. Yeah. Yeah. No matter what, Ashford isn't just Ashford.
Okay, so do I pick the
If you-
potential consequence as well?
Well, I ultimately am the one who picks the potential
Got it.
consequence.
Okay.
The reason we put that out there is oftentimes, so all of these are possibilities. I'm the one who ultimately makes the call. But this kind of tells. But the reason we go through
Got
this exercise mechanically is so that the GM becomes aware of of things that you as the players may be interested in seeing in the game, and also, frankly, it's kind of like sharing the narrative burden.
And for the Devil's Bargain, though, do I pick that one, or is that also just one of
The Devil's
many?
Bargain is the Devil's Bargain. You get to pick. Yes, you get to pick one. You get to pick one or none. Or if you want if you want an extra light die, you can pick one of them. If you don't like either of them, you don't have to pick one, and you just don't get the light die.
Well, I think I like, as much as I like the idea of Ashford being even more of a pain for Percy. I think Marked by a Matheon is it's the kind of thing that Percy would open himself up to. He wouldn't understand the problems with that. He would just think it's pure upside.
Awesome. Okay. So you've got two light die. One for having a skill, one for accepting a Devil's Bargain. You must take a dark die because it's ritual. So why don't you go 2 light, 1 dark on a risk roll?
Okay.
And roll. Let's see what happens. Wow, your dice are on fire today.
Yeah.
6 light. The ritual goes off exactly as you anticipate. Go ahead and tell us what that looks like and what what happens.
So, because I was already in this mostly reclined position, my body goes limp, just prone, and after some moments of confusion, the captain takes on a much less assured stance and is maybe a little grossed out by what his hands look like and feel like now and his physicality, but eventually, in a very poor appropriation of a New Hampshire accent, or of like a working man's New Hampshire accent, starts saying, "Boy, bring her around," and begins just sort of commanding. I'm going to pretend he also pretends to be injured, sort of rubs his arm so that so that the boy needs to do his work.
Okay. And so the boy looks kind of quizzically at the captain, like,
What the hell?
Solomon, you want me to bring her back and go back to the island?
We made an oath, boy.
But
in front of God himself, and I point up to the heavens.
Okay, Captain. You want me to take the wheel?
It's time. You're grown enough, boy.
All color leaves this boy's face and says, okay. And he steps up to the wheel and he puts his hands on it, and you can tell he's shaking in fear. But he takes the wheel and he spins it, and the boat turns around, like comes over a swell and crashes back down and goes to that and like goes back in that direction. As he does that, the wind leaves the sail and it's just kind of like fluttering. To which the boy says, "Saul, you got to adjust the jib."
So I say, what was your name? Winton?
Are you turning to Ashford?
Yeah.
You know, he like Ashford's looking somewhat concerned here. It's like, yes.
I say on it now. Just the jib.
Well, this brings me back to my days on the Harvard sailing team, but brings me back to the days on the Harvard sailing team. But you know, he rubs his hands in anticipation. It's like, it's been a while, but he then, you know, that's the thing about Winton is he kind of legitimately knows a little bit about everything. And yeah, on a 6 on that roll, on the 6 on the wrist roll, I'm just going to say that, yeah, and that Winton actually does. I mean, probably never sailed a boat quite this big, but yeah, he's been on a sailboat before, and he knows how it works. So yeah, he adjusts the jib, and the takes the wind takes the sails, and yeah, you continue on east toward the island. So it's pretty dicey. There's a couple of points where there are a couple of points where the boat does come down, and you hear the sound of rock on wood, and the boat like jolts once or twice, as the boat does like come against some rocks. Doesn't seem to do too much damage yet, but as in the twilight ahead, you do see that an island is getting closer and closer, and it's just barely light enough to see now. But you do see that there is a wooden pier that the boy is heading toward. Let's see. How do we want to do this? I'm curious so as this boat is lurching, and it's the wind is terrible. It's like gale force winds at this point. The seas are rough. The waves have white caps. The wind is more or less against you. It's going to be quite the maneuver to get in. If a character was actually attempting to do the so we've got an NPC at the helm, but I think it's still going to be a risk roll to. I think it's going to be a risk roll to try to get this. You know what? I'm going to say it's not a risk roll. I'm going to say I'm just going to narrate this because it's not a PC who is actually doing the activity here. But this is terrifying. This is legitimately terrifying. You are at sea. There's cold wind. It's a gale. The seas are terrible. I think I am going to call for everyone to make a ruin roll.
What's a ruin roll?
This is going to be a ruin roll. So this is when you're exposed to something terrifying. If you go to the dice roller, there is a ruin roll. Basically, you're going to roll a dark die, and if the dark die is higher than your current ruin roll, your ruin increases by 1. Okay, cool. So it looks like
Florence is going up, but your others are safe.
Yep. Okay, so it does look like Florence's is going up. So Florence, your ruin increases to 4. I am going, and generally in dark, when your ruin goes up, you generally gain a new condition. And I am going to. Oh, there's no line for conditions here. I guess you could just put that in notes.
Yeah.
That's the thing I need to change for this character keeper. Oops. Anyway. So Florence, I am going to give you the so as this is happening, you suddenly get you're like looking out to sea at these terrible rough seas, and you just feel a fascination. You're not going to do it, obviously, but you just have a condition of you have an urge to jump in the water and swim out to sea. So we're going to say urge to swim out to sea.
Yeah.
Let's see. How are we going to do this? So you are inhabiting. So Percy, you are inhabiting the captain who's giving orders to this boy to put this boat into the dock. I think I am going to call for a risk roll here, since you are more or less in control of since you're more or less in control of the captain. I can't think of anyone who would be better suited to like make this risk roll, because I'm just curious as to like what is the like what's the disposition of everyone once you once you get there. Although, you know what, I'm gonna forget that. I think we're just gonna narrate this. I'm just looking at the time. I'm just going to say that we all did risk rolls. Everyone's still more or less in their faculties. I'm going to say that under the that the boy is a far more capable seaman than he gave himself credit for, and he is able to get the boat up to the pier. Once you get close to the island, the waves aren't quite as bad, but are you taking the time to try to tie the ship up, or are you just like hopping off?
I asked the boy, do you wish to abandon ship? Might be safer. It's your choice. Speak now.
The ship is our livelihood.
So best of luck then. So, so I'm gonna drop the inhabitation.
Okay. So what does that look like when you drop the spell? So I guess my question is, did you shunt the spirit off somewhere else, or does it just come back?
I imagined, again, I didn't care where he went in the meantime, maybe into the waves, who knows? But I'm guessing I don't have the power to just drop him off into the abyss forever. So I'm guessing he comes back. But it's probably not something I've done too often, at least not to someone who isn't ready for it, non-consensual inhabitation.
Got it. So I guess my question is, what does it look like when you end the effect?
So for him, I was thinking he would just go completely he would just drop, because he's not ready for it.
Got it. So he just collapses to the deck of the ship.
Yeah, I think Percy's too. He's not the kind of person that's gonna comfortably seat this guy, so he would just drop, I guess.
Okay.
This person needs to get off this thing.
I'm going to say that what Winton does is he uses again, he apparently knows his way around the boat. He does like a quick lash of the ship's ropes onto two of the piers. He doesn't actually tie them. Like, we need to get off now, he says.
Since the rope is at the pier, I definitely gonna tie down the boat, because like once a rower, you just don't let go of like something like that. I think it's more like intuitive than helping somebody. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you also take another so you also help tie it down. Are you like tying it to the, are you tying or just doing the quick like we're gonna lash it to the pier long enough to get on board, to get off, and then we'll cast off again? So I guess my question is, are you keeping the boat? Are you going to try to keep the boat here, or are you going to?
Yeah, we ourselves need to go back. So yeah, better not fuck it up before we started anything, right? Better safe than sorry, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So you are. I'm just going to like move it along. So you tie up the boat. You gather your stuff and you hop onto the pier, and you hop up onto the dock, and you find yourselves on Smutty Nose Island. So as you are, so as you get as you climb up on this dock, and as you climb up on the dock, and you know this fishing boat that you commandeered basically is there at the pier. You do see like maybe a couple of 100 feet off in the distance, there's another boat that's like basically that's capsized. That's floating. That's like just floating away, listless in the water. It is capsized. So like, you know, the keel. So the keel is up, and it's just kind of like floating. It's kind of floating past you, lifeless in the water. And that ends ring 2. I need to take a quick bio break. We're getting close to the hour. So why don't we take a 5-minute break now, and then we'll come back and we'll continue. Okay, we are back. Looking at the time, we've got about an hour left of play, so I'm going to try to increase the pace a little bit. But yeah, we should be able to finish this game. So once you get on the island, it's only a few minutes after that the winds calm very, very quickly, and the seas are still somewhat rough, but they're not. But you know, they're now just back to like normal rough seas. They're not like it's not like 10-foot swells anymore, which is odd. The other thing that has been really weird about this gale and the rough seas is that the skies had remained perfectly clear. It is now actually dark. It is now past twilight. You are on the island. Smutty Nose Island is little more than a flat chunk of granite bedrock jutting 25 feet above the high tide mark. Aside from a tiny cove barely large enough for a skiff, the shore of the island is all jagged cliffs with a small wooden pier near the cove. The island is barely a quarter mile long and only about 400 feet wide. There is very little soil on the island. Much of it is bare rock. What soil is there is covered with shrub-like pine trees and poison ivy. There are two buildings. There are two buildings on this island. There is a two-story. It's like a large-ish two-story house. It's got a wide porch that goes all the way around the building. Also has an attic. Not too far from there is a much smaller building. It looks like some kind of a shed. There are no, you can make it out in the, you can just barely make out the outlines of this building in the starlight. There are no lights on in either building. What do you do?
Get out of the terrible weather. Head for our what is it? Mid Ocean House.
Mid-Ocean House was the name.
Yeah.
Okay, so you head toward the building, and again, it is dark. There is a path. It's dark. It is moonless. That was one of the requirements of the ritual, was on the night of the new moon. So there will be no moon tonight. The stars are very bright. And the sky is clear. The winds have died down significantly. Pretty much ever since you set foot on the island, the gales that you were facing on the sea, there's a little bit of a breeze, but there's not much at all. And you're never far from the ocean. You hear the sounds of the waves pounding on the shore, pounding on the cliffs. That's a constant din in the background. You approach the house. It is dark. You go up to the front door. The front door is locked, and there is a note pinned to the front door.
What does it say?
Yeah.
The note is addressed to Arthur Tillinghast, saying that, so the note's addressed to Arthur Tillinghast, and it says, basically, it's kind of an angry note saying that, telling Tillinghast that, basically chiding Tillinghast for wasting the hotel staff's time for opening for 2 nights off season, and then nobody showed, so all of the staff got on their boat and went back to Portsmouth. It also is clear that they will be charging Tillinghast the full price that they had agreed upon.
That is scandalous.
Well,
Because I mean,
you did.
You knew that the Mid-Ocean House normally closes. It normally closes on the 1st of October because no one in their right mind wants to be out here in the autumn or winter. But Tillinghast had paid extra to open it up, but nobody showed. And so they left at about 4 once it was clear nobody was going to be coming.
That is just scandalous. They've been paid, well, to work really, but even if there's nothing to do, they've been paid to wait. Why would they leave?
Well, not to speak ill of the dead, maybe, but a man should be punctual. I'd
It's
say
not
all of our
powerful.
problems are at his feet.
So you are here at a dark, locked hotel. What do you do?
I mean, I'm not gonna stand outside of it in the storm. I'm trying to force.
There's just to be clear, there is no storm at this point. As soon as you got on the island, the wind died down. Skies are clear. There's a little bit of a breeze. You hear the sound of surf, but clear skies. The stars are beautiful.
I mean, they probably did not really lock the door. I mean, they probably had to barricade one door from the outside to make it stormproof when they're gone for the winter. So there is one door somewhere around the house that we should be able to open up really easily.
So this place does have a big front door, facing the direction where you would be coming from, facing the path that leads to the docks. Yeah, there is also a back door on the other side. It looks like it probably goes into the kitchen. Both doors are locked.
I say we break a window and they can bill it to old Arthur. Wait, how much time do we have anyway?
So it's probably at this point you've dragged, once you've got your luggage off from the boat, you've dragged it here. It's still fairly early. I mean, it's October, so the sunset's pretty early. It's probably about 8 o'clock, and you need to start the ritual at about 2 a.m. So you've got a few hours. You've got several hours at this point. What your plans had been was to take the boat over in the afternoon. You were going to check into the hotel. You were going to have a meal. And then after the meal, you're going to prepare for the ritual and then perform it when it was time.
Arthur's good for it.
Going to break into the hotel?
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, so you break in. Again, this place does not have electricity. It's the early 20th century. A lot of places still don't have electricity. But it is stocked with you poke around and eventually you find you find some kerosene lamps. You light them. You look around, and yeah, the place has been clearly locked up and shuttered for the winter, but there's still supplies in here. You take a few minutes to check out the place, I presume. The first floor is a large common room, combination common room, lobby, and dining room. Also on the first floor is a kitchen off the back. There's like a reception desk, with like keys for the rooms on a pegboard behind it. And there's a small office. On the second floor are 6 guest rooms. There's also a small staircase that goes up to the attic. This building does not have a basement.
Did the lobsterman and his boy leave? Or
I am going to say yes. I'm going to say as soon as you were off that ship, as soon as the 4 of you had disembarked, and the boy untied the boat and cast back off and attempted to sail back for Portsmouth.
Well,
Is there any food left that we could use to just prepare a meal to warm up and like get to know that our new friend a little bit better? We never really had the time to introduce ourselves to Winton Ashford.
Oh yes. That was quite the journey. Terrible seas. I don't know. I've never seen them. I mean, I've been at sea many of times in the past, of course, but I've never seen such a gale come out of nowhere with clear skies, and that was very unusual. It seemed, and he leans in conspiratorially, supernatural.
Oh, indeed. I had the same feeling. Indeed, I felt the connection to Koshedra. But I also must say, I'm quite thankful for you, Doctor, that you stepped up for us, and you seemed quite skillful at what you did. Have you been a sailor?
I was with the in my youth I was a bit of a yachtsman. Yes. My father had a yacht. I was never that interested in yachting, but
yes.
I certainly trained a little bit.
It was a nice bit of luck that you've had such experience, but perhaps it's better to be prepared, such as knowing how to snuff out a mine like a candle and overtake it. Did you not notice?
Oh, that was a decent bit of magic. Yes, I saw. I did indeed see that you cast the you did. Yeah, I did see that you performed the ritual, that you performed the and he, what does he say? Like it appeared to be John Dee's incantation to possess the mind. Is that the one you used?
I can see why you would think that's the one, and then I'm going to go off and look for some booze.
But I'm sorry to bring that up. Our lodge clearly has some protocols established. Since we're dabbling with the dark arts, we're not supposed to cast rituals outside our society. But yeah, since I do agree it was somewhat necessary, so I probably will not report back to Arthur, but it seemed a bit, you seem to jump in there real quick with casting rituals in public.
And they will. Oh, in public, you mean in front of that man? I don't think he was the sharpest tack in the box. So, point duly taken. I think he's probably at the bottom of the ocean with our friend Arthur, but yes, you are correct. It was a breach.
After all, I'm willing to trust your leadership skills, like I said before.
Thank you.
It's just now that we have an extra pair of eyes. And on that note, I just flatter Dr. Winton Ashford a little bit, try to chat him up.
Oh, he seems very interested to engage you in conversation. He seems quite intrigued with you indeed.
So I'm really gonna go look for booze now, because
okay.
Some things are too much.
I'm going with you.
So you poke around poking around. I'm just going to tell you, you poke around the kitchen, and it's clear that the staff, the place had been shut down for the winter. They reopened it briefly for a couple of days. They restocked it briefly for for like just your party. The staff must have taken whatever perishables they brought with them back out, but they did leave. But still in the building, there's a good amount of dry firewood. There's plenty of kerosene. There are several kerosene lamps, matches, and there is food. There's jarred and tinned food.
Nice.
There's nothing really fresh here, but there's like some tinned food. There's some like canning jars that are full of various vegetables. There's some tinned fish. There's some tinned meat. There's some like commercially produced canned vegetables as well. I'm gonna say they probably would not have left like flour or anything like that to make bread, but I don't imagine you folks would probably be too interested in making like baking better dumplings. But there is enough food in here that you could easily light a stove. You could easily light the stove and heat up food so that you could make a meal of. It's going to be nothing fancy. And Percy, yes, you do find there is a liquor cabinet that probably would have, that like, again, when they're open, probably would have had more stock, but there's a couple of there's a couple of bottles of like not terribly expensive whiskey, not terribly expensive gin, and not terribly expensive rum.
All right, I'll pour a glass of rum for myself and for Florence, and toaster, say, to Arthur.
While that is happening, I'm sure when there's canned stuff around, I find some coffee and just something to have a bite.
Yep.
And I prepared it, and then I call everybody to the table. And while we were drinking coffee, I'm gonna ask everybody, should we check out the supernatural energies of this place? I perhaps could do a coffee reading, if you so will.
I think that's a smashing idea. I think I'd like to raise something sensitive just for a moment. Is there any chance that Arthur skunked us? And this is a bit of a... No, I can't say it. Proceed.
There is no doubt that he chickened out. he always was just in for the show. And I knew that from the get-go, but his money was good. So that's why I never said it before. But he's not here, and we will that will be to our advantage. We will get all the knowledge and power, and we do groundbreaking stuff here tonight.
It's true. If he's alive, the Crescent Moon will understand, will know what he's done here, which is abandonment.
Yep.
So I'm going to a couple of questions for the group. So just like everyone has a question in the back of the mind, which is like, whose fault is it that this ritual is off to such a terrible start? I will ask each of you that in turn. Each of you have that question in mind, and I'm going to ask briefly if you could say like, who's this, this is not how this was supposed to start. Whose fault is it? Florence, whose fault do you think this is?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Each of you, like the question in each of your minds is, you're all observing that this whole ritual thing is off to a very ill-fated start.
Yeah.
Who are you? Who does Mona blame? I'm sorry, Mona. Who does Florence blame for? Who does Florence blame for this? The question.
Yeah, can you circle back to me? I need to think about it.
Oh, absolutely. Anna, whose fault do you think it is that this ritual is off to such an ill-fated start?
I know this is a bit of an unsatisfying answer right now, but as of now, the only one that is responsible for it is Arthur.
Yeah, kind of.
At Arthur.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I really can't think of anyone else to blame.
Got it. Yeah, that he seems to be the common scapegoat here. Percy, does Percy have any other suspicions, or are you also blaming Arthur?
Well, Percy sees life as a zero-sum game. It's pure competition, and so he thinks he's horrified at the idea that Percival might have offered us. Sorry, that Arthur might be offering us up as a sacrifice, as some sort of offering to Kashedra, because something's required always, right? So that's his worry, and of course that he would want to dispose of someone as promising as Percival. But now that Astrid is here, that makes it even worse, because as much as Percival would hate to admit it, Astrid's he's much worse competition for Arthur. So that's his worry, that this is a trap, a setup.
Ooh, I love it.
So the three of us are the offering, so that Ashford gets all the advantage, basically.
Oh no, that's even worse.
I love it.
Not if we sacrifice him first.
Yeah, we're not suspecting him. It's only like Percy that he threw that whole plan.
So you've got a few hours. How are you preparing to begin the ritual? I'm going to say you are able, you have a meal. It's certainly not the best meal you've ever had, but it's you have a hot meal, you have some drink, you're able to make some coffee, you're able to make you're able to make a passable dinner. You found the liquor cabinet, so everyone, I suppose, who wants to can have a couple of drinks. What are you doing and I'm going to say that all takes it so that it's probably close to 9 at night. What are you doing to prepare for the ritual that's going to begin at about 2 a.m.?
I think that is what I said. For me, it's a coffee reading, because as a medium, I need to be like super sensitive about all the energies that are in this place. And I need to get like dialed in and just like get it in sync, I say, with the energy here. Otherwise I can't perceive anything, right? I need to open up and get in sync with the energies. So for me, it's like coffee readings and other like smaller rituals, and yeah.
Awesome. Percy, what are you doing to prepare for this ritual?
So I need to get away from Ashford. So I'm gonna walk the island with a drink of brandy and and I'm gonna speak to Amathian, or rather just listen to her whispers, because I think if this is a trap, I need, Percy's always ready to jump ship. So if he needs a new master or mistress, then he's ready. So he's just gonna sort of take the night air with his brandy.
Nice. Are you just like collecting your thoughts? Are you opening yourself up, or is there?
He's opening himself up to her for sure.
Okay.
He was expecting we would sacrifice something, but doesn't seem like that's on hand unless. Oh, and he does want to find some sort of knife, however small, just in case him and Ashford have to finally have it out.
Got it. I mean, like I said earlier, this isn't a game of like inventory tracking. So if it makes sense for you to have something, I mean, if you want to say that you have a knife, I mean, heck, if you want to say that you're carrying a pistol, that's absolutely okay.
Right. No, that's too much noise for Percy. But he would grab a knife from the pantry.
Yeah, okay. Or I mean, if you wanted to like show up with like some kind of like ceremonial ritual, like a ritual dagger, that could be.
Oh yeah,
that could be totally part of you. And you had brought with you stuff to perform the ritual.
Right.
I'm curious as to like what stuff did you bring with you to perform this ritual?
Yeah, I definitely figured we would have some of that, because he was thinking we would spill some blood into the goblet that he was going to give away, and but he needs all of Percy's stuff is very sort of Egypt based, but he wants a little something small that he can keep hidden from everyone else.
Okay, so you say you're keeping like a small knife or a small dagger. Is that what you mean?
Okay. Yeah, even like a little cheese knife, or not something blunt, but just something small that he could fold up in his pocket.
Got it. Yeah. So if you weren't bringing one, you could certainly find like a small sharp paring knife or a sharp steak knife or something like that from the kitchen. That is absolutely, you can absolutely have something like that. Florence, what did you bring for the ritual, and how are you preparing?
Yeah, I think how I'm preparing is I'm reading the stars, right? Because I want to see the potence. That's one thing I think that actually works. And as for let me check something. As for what I brought for the ritual, let me check the timeline or something. Yeah, whatever. I'm just going to say, Florence is kind of the chaos magic type, so she just does whatever she thinks have worked. So the stuff she brought is like a mishmash of a bunch of things that doesn't make traditional sense for an occultist. So she has some like idols and symbols and stuff like that, but she also have like pictures of pop stars and like I think it was EP, it was LP record and like music sheets.
Okay,
and
so you brought some sheet music. You brought some 78s. You got like a signed photograph of Clara Bow or somebody like that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird mix of things, and maybe some like board game pieces, dice, and stuff like that.
Interesting. I love it. Okay. Looking at time, I think that so. Percy, as you went out to like walk around the island and take a look, one thing that you find slightly there's one thing that happens out there that's slightly disconcerting, and that is as you're walking around. And again, this island is it's like a flat rock. There is a very small, shallow pond. The rocks are just covered with like gull droppings, and at one point there is a flock of gulls that are like roosting on the ground, and at one point all of them like raise their heads, and they all in unison look right at you.
So I'm going to raise my glass to them and say, I'll leave you to it.
And that ends ring 3. We are now in ring 4. I need to step away for like a minute. I'll be right back. Okay. It is the appointed hour. It is the appointed hour.
Quite so.
You are now conducting. You are now. It is now time for the ritual. It is the time. The star Algol has risen in the east. The sky is filled with countless brilliant stars, and the yellow-orange star Algol rises. It is the appointed time for the ritual. I'm going to ask each of you in turn to describe a part of the ritual and your role in it. So I'm going to go. Let's start with Percy. What is part of the ritual that needs to be performed, and what is your part in it?
So part of it is to do a little bloodletting among ourselves, but Percival, because he's not shy about such things, he's sort of taken upon him to do the majority or all of that if need be. So he's going to do the initial slicing of his palms. He's doing it in a sort of he's got a specific pattern that he's cooked up. That's one that he thinks will give him more favor with Kolshedra, and so he's going to do that, and then sort of in a slightly blasphemous sort of process, bless the summoning bowl. It's like one of those, or it's like an incantation bowl, like those old timey things that are sort of written within with the actual sort of symbol of Kolshedra in the middle.
Okay, and I think it was just assumed, but I'm assuming that you're performing this ritual outdoors because it has to be under the open sky.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
Anna, what is? Please describe another part of the ritual and your part in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here because I'm the medium of the group, right? So I need to open up myself for whatever entity we're calling upon. But I've never been confronted with such like a powerful entity. Usually it's only like mere like lower spirits that just haven't found the afterlife quite yet, or like, yeah, just like people who passed recently. But 6,000 years and stuff like that needs precaution. And I'm gonna take probably my lipstick or something like that. And I'll do just some basic sigils I learned to protect me, prepare like some runes and some sigils on my body that are supposed to save me. and also I'll have probably like a talisman or something like that I never tried. I don't know if it's working, but it's supposed to like just repel spirits. So I don't want to become possessed. I just want to be a medium for a time, right? So
Okay.
I make sure that or I think I make sure that that I'll come back. Yeah.
Okay. Mona, same question to Florence. Please let us, what is another part of this ritual and what is your part in it?
Yeah, so obviously there's some complex astronomical computation that needs to be done with the star algo and like the surrounding constellation. And because as above so below, I think we have to replicate a certain constellation on the ritual site. So I think I'm building the constellation on the ground with coffee beans, and I'm probably I'm doing my chant, but the chanting is probably I don't know, a pop song, maybe a Beatles song.
Well, it's 1902, so it's 1902, so the Beatles haven't even been born yet.
Ah, shit. I don't know any song from 100 years ago.
That's okay. There
Yeah,
certainly
anyway.
was popular music, although they tended to count. Recordings are just starting to become popular, and in those days they mostly counted pops. They mostly counted pop songs by how much piano sheet music was sold.
A Bird in a Gilded Cage looks like it was a real banger in 1900.
It would, yeah, it would make sense, right? Or maybe it's just I was just saying twinkle twinkle little star. That would make sense too. Right?
Anyway, cool. So I'm also going to ask each of you. The following question: what must be sacrificed to complete this ritual, and why are you the only one who knows this? Mind if we go back around in the opposite direction? So I'll ask Florence that first question. What must be sacrificed to complete this ritual, and why are you the only one who knows this?
What must be sacrificed? It's kind of boring to say a person.
But I mean, that's totally valid. As your eyes turn toward your three companions, the other two player characters, and Dr. Winton Ashford, Esquire, PhD, ESJD, ESQ.
No, I think it's not that straightforward. I think what must be sacrificed is a name.
A name?
So I think from my study about the star algo and the constellation, I think yeah, as above so below. So I think the unnamed constellation around Ogo needs to be given a name, a human name, for it to be reflected and manifest on Earth. And once that name is taken, that person just, they are kind of, well, from what I can tell, they are kind of just unpersoned, So their name won't show up in any records or phone book, and people can't even say. People will just forget oh yeah, let doctor guy, let Esquire something From Harvard. Yeah, that guy. It's
Okay.
arguably a fate worse than death.
So I'll just, since you are the astrologer, I'll just tell you this is like legit true. Algol is also known as the demon star, and it is the brightest star in the constellation Perseus. It is called the demon star because it, unlike most stars, it is its brightness varies over time. And right now, it is as bright as you have ever seen it. So yes, I really like that. You've got to sacrifice names. Cool. Percy, same question. What must be sacrificed to complete this ritual, and why are you the only one who knows that?
I'm torn here. I mean, Percy thinks that any important ritual, above a certain threshold needs to sacrifice a life. No animals here, of course. I think that Percy believed that that it had to be the most sort of valuable, the most important among us, which is why he assumed it would be Arthur, and he was more than ready to dispense of him. So at this point, maybe it's a little convenient that he thinks it would be potentially his old nemesis. The problem there is that Percy is not the man that that Winton is, and so there's no way that Percival can do that sort of by himself. But in his heart of hearts, Percy thinks that the real thing that needs to be sacrificed is a nation, or rather, he thinks that once Kolshedra sort of overtakes him, that Kolshedra will want a sort of earthly nation to sort of begin her kingdom. And so that's really the true sort of goal. So even though he's got his eyes on Winton, on his back and his neck, that's what he really thinks is necessary for this to be, not so much for the calling to happen, but for anything to be done with it.
Got it. Today, New Hampshire, tomorrow, the world. Got it.
Yeah, and Percy's more than willing to give up this nation, which he feels has given him nothing.
Anna, same question to you. What must be sacrificed to complete this ritual, and why are you the only one who knows this?
So that is because obviously, knowing she is like super powerful, I did research, and there was no book, or at least according to Arthur, there was no book that actually could help me, give me some details. The thing is, my neighbors in the quarter I lived, they are from Albania, and they have like a legend about the dragon called Kolshedra. And they told, like, they were singing songs, and I just happened to ask. It was just sheer intuition. I just asked them what their songs is about. And they told me that it's like the song about this dragon called Kolshedra, and it's like the dragon protects humanity from storms and harsh weather. So I knew I needed to embrace the elements that are part of Kolshedra, and I rubbed dirt at some places on my body. I drenched parts of my underwear, of my undergarments. I burned my skin with some fire, just like on my upper arm, and I did breathing exercises for a bit. But of course, like, dragons are always known to eat humans. So one of us has to die at some point. Just me embracing the elements makes sure I'm probably not the first pick, right?
Got it. Okay, so as the ritual progresses, keep blanking on his name. And Ashford is like doing the ritual as well. He seems to be fully informed as to like how this ritual is supposed to go. So you are performing this ritual. As you are performing this ritual, the sound of the surf against the cliff walls on the island, and again, you're not more than you're never more than a few hundred feet from the sea in any direction here. This is a very small island. The surf crashes in a rhythm that almost sounds like chanting. And as you proceed with the ritual, you see figures. You see things climb from the sea onto the island and make their way towards you. Man-shaped, man-sized, but tentacled, suckered arms outstretched. They circle. So there are perhaps kind of hard to tell in the dark, kind of hard to tell in just the starlight. But they outnumber you. They circle around you, and they also start like moving in time with the ritual that you are performing. In fact, they seem to be aiding in your ritual. I'm going to have to ask each of you to make a ruin roll. And I've had this. I have the window in a very small one, and I can't tell right now. I can't tell which are old rolls and which are new rolls.
So far, I've got a 2, Percy got a 6, and Florence got a 5.
Okay, so it looks like both Percy and Florence, both of your ruin increases. Okay. So as the ritual progresses, you feel real power manifest. There's a briny electricity that you can just feel is charging the air. The wind starts to pick up again, and the surf increases its intensity. With these fish squid things now both watching and participating in the ritual, now is the time to use real hermetic power. However, each of you, again, this is a question to each of you. The occultist to the left of you is doing something wrong in this ritual that could jeopardize its success. What are you doing to correct that fool's mistake? Let's start with Anna. I'm just going to say the character clockwise to you on my view is doing something wrong by your estimation. So what are you doing to compensate for that? So what is Florence doing wrong, and what are you doing to fix it?
Ooh, that is a good question. But I think Florence is she's probably used to like constellation drawings and stuff like that, where it's like just drawing something from point A to point B. But this with the sigils, you have to go like a bit like swirly and do some curves and stuff like that. And this is everything is way too pointy and way too straight. And just the lines are not, it's just not how you're supposed to do it. So it's like some of this stuff is just wrong. And I mean, what did we say about sexism? Okay, no, that's the line. Okay. I just say straight out, you need to do that a bit more curvy, right, sister? You need to have Disney. You need to get some rounds, some curves in.
Are you just going ahead and making those corrections, or are you telling Florence to do it?
I assume I'm busy myself, so I can only tell. I can't help right now.
So Mona, you've just been told that you've not made your sigils correctly, but yeah, fine, whatever. What is Percy doing wrong in this ritual, and what are you doing to try to correct Percy's error?
Yeah, I think I told Anna, I'm a writer, not an artist. And then, what is Percy doing wrong?
And I'm just going to point out we are starting to run low on time, so I was just going to answer these. I was going to answer these questions and just kind of like move us to ring 5, and that will hopefully that'll be the end.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say, like, he's chanting, he is an initiation, right? Like I said, and like, where did you learn your English?
I say at one of the finest boarding schools in New England.
Could have fooled me. I thought you picked it up in the Russian army.
I went to Phillips Exeter Academy.
We'll have words about this tomorrow.
And Percy, same question to you. What is Anna doing wrong in this ritual, and what are you doing to compensate for it?
Anna needs to give blood, so I'm going to help her with that. I'm going to give her a little slice across the hand.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm extremely hesitant. Blood is not an element.
Don't worry, I understand how this goes.
Oh, and I'm going to say that both Florence and Anna, as Percy does this, you notice something, and that is a sigil seems to have appeared right in the center of Percy's forehead. It is not one associated with this particular ritual. It's associated with, well, your hermetic, both of your hermetic knowledge knows that this sigil that seems to have suddenly appeared on Percy's forehead is associated with the Egyptian goddess Amathiaon, the Egyptian goddess of the sea, which is weird because doesn't have anything to do with Kolshedra according to the lore that you've had. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So at this point, so the ritual continues. A shaft of light beams down from Algol into the center of your. Oh, and we are now in ring 5. A shaft of light has beamed down from this brilliant panoply of stars above you. And this beam comes down and like shines almost like a spotlight into the center of your ritual. Is this a sign of Kolshedra's blessing? But as your ritual continues, the beam moves out of the circle and moves off to your left, across the island into the water just off the coast, and stops there and is now shining into the water. And all of you just know that only one of you can be blessed with this power, and the rest must go. But as you look in, is there something else stirring there in the deep? Question is, as this ritual is continuing, you now all realize that these fish things that were circling you have moved forward, and they have taken control of this ritual. They are in control of it. Are any of you trying to stop them?
Indeed. We're not gonna have this ritual overrun by monsters. Just with the sheer power Kolshedra possesses, that is yeah, that is like dooming all of us. So
I'm going to throw one more thing in there, because that beam of light that's in the water, all of you know that the esoteric arcane knowledge that you seek is contained in is contained in that beam. And as you lock eyes with the other three occultists here, you can see that the knowledge may be manifesting in their others' eyes, and but this power is rightfully yours. That beam of starlight shining into the water beckons.
I know I'm not supposed to be backstabby right now, but I've got just the perfect ritual for it, and that is strike. So I'm doing just a super move where like hit something with great force. That means I probably have somehow the ability to do like something like a blast type of thing. So I'm just gonna blast right like in the center, blasting the center of our ritual. So like that, like just a wave coming from it will push all the creatures that are trying to mess with the sigils aside, and just like the force will like just push me back somehow towards the beam of light. So I got like a little advantage.
Oh, okay. So you want to use this ritual to basically propel you toward the light.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay. Yeah, let's we're running low on time, but let's talk dice.
I mean, if somebody wants to do something else, it's already contest roll, right? So I will give them the chance, because they're in the ritual, they would be blown away somehow, I guess.
So if you wanted, so let's just go around and see what everyone's actions are going to be, and then we'll figure out how we're going to resolve them. Percy, what do you want to do?
So I was going to I was going to try to inhabit Ashford.
Okay.
I want him to assault these creatures and be destroyed in the process.
Okay. Cool. And Florence, what do you want to do?
Yeah, I think the power is in the spirit and not the body. So I'm going to squire the bottom of the ocean. Put my spirit directly there.
Got it. So each of you are attempting. So basically, each of you are attempting to, in some way or other, magically. You're all basically attempting to magically get this knowledge. So if we had more time, I would have I'd probably have each of you have the rituals. We'd have the effect. We've literally got 5 minutes before we have to end. So I think we're going to end this on I think we're going to call this a contest roll. That each of you are using your own magic to try to claim this power. So I think that's how we're gonna conclude this. So the way a contest roll works, when multiple treasure hunters are trying to achieve the same goal, and it seems like each of you are trying to like gain this arcane knowledge, take one light die if you have an appropriate skill in what you're trying to do. Now you're all trying to do rituals to do that. You're all using like rituals to do this, so you all get that light die. Just hop over to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So take one light die if you have a skill from an occupation or background that'll give you advantage. You only get one light die, even if multiple skills would apply. So each of you get one. Take one light die for each point of ruin you currently have. So for every point of ruin, you get an additional light die. Take a dark die if what you're doing is inherently dangerous, and the answer to that is yes. You're using magic, so this is inherently dangerous. So each of you have one light die plus one light die per point of ruin that you currently have. You each have a dark die, and then each of you can add as many dark dice as you are willing to risk. So we're going to roll the dice, and the way we resolve this is So each of you have this dice pool. We're going to roll them. We're going to count sixes. Whoever gets the most sixes on all of these dice is going to win the contest. If
So
there's a tie, go on.
What's the downside of having too many dark dice?
For every one that comes up on a dark die, your ruin increases by 1.
Okay.
You most likely gonna like die or be like at least not human anymore with a lot of dark dice.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people throw 6. I've seen people. I have seen people throw like 6 dark dice, 6 or 7 dark dice into a contest roll, and none of them rolled up 1, so they didn't take any ruin. But again, the more dice you have, and the 6, it doesn't matter the color of the 6, the number of the we're going to count number of 6s. If more than one, if there's a tie for the number of 6s, we'll then count 5s and then 4s and so on until we determine a winner. So there will always be a winner in a contest roll. So so let's figure this out. So Anna,
should we roll simultaneously or something?
We should roll simultaneously. So let's everyone go to the contest roll, and so let's everyone go to the contest roll tab, and we'll each of you put in the number of dice that you want, and then I'm gonna go like 1, 2, 3, and then everyone hit roll at the same time, and then we'll figure out the winner. So Anna, let's figure out your dice pool. So you've got 1 light die for having a ritual. You've got another 3 light dice for having 3 points to ruin.
Yeah.
You get 1. You must take 1 dark die for it being dangerous. So how many additional dark dice do you want?
I'm gonna go with 20 dark dice total.
Okay.
I mean, I just talked up that it's like a super powerful being, and I just love the possibility turning into a dragon or something like that.
Got it. Okay, Percy. You get 1 light die. So you're gonna get 5 light die, 4 for ruin and 1 for having a ritual. You must take at least 1 dark die. And how many more dark dice do you want to put in?
Just 5.
Just 5. Okay. So you're going to be rolling a contest with 5 light. You're going to be running. So that's 5 light and 6 dark, or 5 total. 5 light, 6 dark. Okay, cool. And Florence, you're going to have 6 light dice, at least 1 dark dice. And how many additional ones do you want to throw?
How many these dice will allow?
You can add as many dark dice as you want. I don't know what the maximum is, so.
But it doesn't seem like I can adjust the number directly. I have to keep adding.
Yeah, you have to keep hitting the plus button. So
Yeah. Look. I'm at 5 ruins, so I really don't care anymore.
Okay. So how many are you doing?
Yeah, right now 255.
Okay, well, if you've set your if you've set, go ahead and hit roll, and let's see what happens. I have to move this to a bigger screen so I can see them all. Oh my God.
I haven't rolled yet because I thought you might need to look at these other dice first.
God, it's more than.
For me, it's broken. It's not working anymore.
It said.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we are. Let's see.
There's no chance I can roll 200 dark die and not getting a 1.
I was gonna say, yeah. Okay. So.
Well, yeah, you've already got at least.
Yeah,
4
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What I see.
You got like 13.
Right now.
Yeah, you got like 13 successes, but your ruin went up by 4 according to the according to this.
Okay, should I do my roll?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Okay, your ruin does not go up, but looks like you have 6 successes.
Oh yeah, you're right. Wow.
Your ruin does not go up.
I might survive.
And Mona, like go ahead and hit roll. Let's see what happens.
I already rolled.
Oh, you already. Oh, that was yours. That
I
you.
Ring
think
went
I
up
may have-
by 32.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so
Yeah. My window broke with like that massive die roll.
Got
I
it,
can't
okay.
scroll or anything anymore.
Got it. Okay. So, yeah, we are at time here. So, I think I'm just going to narrate the end. So the three of you each like break with the summoning ritual to cast your own magical rituals. There is a so I'm going to say like Florence like scries under the water and sees the mystical light, turns the focus up the shaft, and you have this feeling of moving moving through space and time. And those of you who are back on the ground see like Florence like collapses to the ground and like literally just disappears. Anna, you also cast your spell to like propel yourself, and it works. Your ritual like basically catapults you off of the island, and you land in the water. You land in the ocean, like bathed in this light, and as you sink below the waves, your eyes are open, and we can just see your eyes are just full of stars, as this expression of ecstasy crosses your face as you sink below the waves. Percy, your spell also goes off. You inhabit the body of Winston's body, and he turns and attacks, like physically, just like he draws a ritual dagger and attacks one of the fish creatures, and the fish creatures just like are on him, and there's this like, they're just on him, and they just drag him down, and then they, as a group, they drag them off into the water, which leaves you standing here on the island, like, your knife in hand, looking up at the stars as this shaft of light, like goes back up into the sky, and Percy remains standing on this island, looking up at Algol, just standing there alone on this island. I think that's when the credits roll, and the post-credit sequence is you're clearly on another planet. There's a red sky, like rocks, like crystalline rocks of orange and purple are coming up out of this like pool of water, and to the surface of this water comes Florence, still dressed in whatever she had been dressed in, and she like staggers up onto this like crystalline shoreline, looking upon this alien landscape. But as the camera comes in on her face, her eyes are completely black with stars in her eyes, and her eyes expand, and again she has this like look of almost ecstasy on her face, as we can just tell that the secrets of the universe have become known to her. And that was Trophy Dark, Isle of Water and Blood.
Awesome.
We are over time for this. I don't have really, I do have a game at 2. I'm happy to go like another like 4 or 5 minutes if we want to do a stars and wishes, or if we want to, we'll do that off camera. So thanks for anyone who's watching. Thanks for watching. I am ending the recording now.